I am 48 years old, and for the first time in my life, I'm sitting still long enough to hear my own story without trying to escape it. It is strange how silence can feel louder than shouting. I used to think noise was the problem. Arguments, tension, doors closing too hard. But now I know. The real danger was always the silence I ran into afterward. The kind where you are left alone with yourself and realize you don't quite know who that is. If I trace it back, and I have done that many times in therapy, in journals, and sleepless nights, it begins when I was 5. I remember standing in the hallway, small enough that the door handles were still slightly above my natural reach. My father was shouting again. My mother too. Their voices were sharp, like broken glass thrown across the room. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the feeling. I remember thinking, they don't care that I'm here. That was the early lesson. I learned that love does not pause for you. That even if you're small and scared, people will still hurt each other loudly without noticing what it does to you. The second lesson came not long after. My mother went on holiday. She left me with my aunt. Everyone said it casually, like it was normal, like it meant nothing. But I remember standing at the door, watching her leave, feeling something collapse inside me. Why didn't she take me? That question stayed longer than she did. It grew roots, it became a quiet belief. I am not worth taking along. I didn't say it out loud, children rarely do. We don't have the language yet, but we feel it, and then we become it. By 18, I had already learned the most important survival strategy of my life. Leave before you are left. I became an au pair in another country. Everyone thought it was brave, adventurous, but it wasn't that. It was escape. At that time, my mother had already divorced my father, and my father, he was already gone. Lost in his own world of alcohol and rehabilitation. And my mother and I lived together like survivors of the same storm, but never quite talking about it. I didn't hate home. That's the complicated part. I loved my sister. I understood my mother. But the air in that house carried too many unspoken things. So I left. And I kept leaving. First into work, quickly, almost urgently. Then into relationships that never quite had the chance to root themselves before I pulled them out. At home, I had learned something that felt like truth. Relationships are not safe. They are unstable, unpredictable. And when something goes wrong, you don't fix it. You end it. You run. I didn't know I had generalized one broken marriage of my parents into a rule for all love. I didn't know my mind had taken one painful example and turned it into a life philosophy. But it did. And I lived by it. My first serious relationship should have been different. He was kind, he loved me. He wanted to marry me. And I ran. At the time, I told myself a story. That he lacked ambition, that I was meant for something bigger, that I simply couldn't settle for less. But the truth, what I see now, is quieter and more uncomfortable. Being with him made me feel even more unworthy. It doubled the feeling I already carried inside. Because if someone ordinary loved me, what did that say about my value? I didn't understand it then, but I do now. I was measuring my worth through the reflection of others, and I didn't like what I saw. So I left him. And then I met my husband. He was successful, strong, certain. When he chose me, something inside me relaxed. See, I thought I must be worthy after all. I built my identity on that feeling. We got married. We had children. Life looked like something stable, something good. We built small rituals that made it feel whole. Family holidays where we packed too much, argued over directions, laughed in unfamiliar places, and returned home tired, but somehow closer. And every year, just the two of us would leave the children behind for a few days and go somewhere on our own. Those trips felt lighter, like stepping back into who we were before responsibilities multiplied. We would talk more, touch more, remember ourselves and each other. In those moments, I believed we had found something solid, something that worked. But stability, for someone like me, is not peaceful. It is threatening. Because when things are calm, you start to feel again. And when our children grew older, something shifted. My husband softened. He spent more time with them, trying to make up for the years he had worked too much when they were little. And I felt left out. Not in a dramatic way at first, just small things. Less attention, fewer conversations, fewer moments where I felt seen. But for me, those small things weren't small. They touched that 5-year-old girl standing in the hallway, that child watching her mother leave without her. And suddenly, I wasn't a 40-year-old woman in a marriage. I was a child again, thinking, I am not important enough. So I did what I had learned to do. I created conflict. I started arguments about investments, about the children's education, about decisions I had never cared to control. Before I pushed, I challenged, I provoked. At the time, I didn't understand why I thought I was asserting myself, becoming stronger, more independent. But the truth is, I was asking for attention in the only language I knew: fight or flight. My husband didn't fight back. He stayed calm. He brushed things off, thinking I was just having bad days. But his calmness felt like indifference to me. His non-reaction felt like rejection. And something dangerous happened then. I started to lose respect for him. I saw his softness not as safety, but as weakness. I tested him. I pushed harder. And when he didn't push back, I went further. Without realizing it, the entire balance of our relationship shifted. I became dominant, controlling decisions I had never wanted before. Not because I cared about those things, but because control felt like attention. Because control felt like proof that I mattered. And at the same time, I became jealous of my own children. Even saying that now feels uncomfortable, but it's true. They were getting the attention I craved. And instead of understanding that, I fought it. Eventually, everything flipped. The relationship changed shape. And instead of trying to understand what was happening, I followed my oldest instinct. I left. I told myself I was choosing independence, strength, self-respect. But if I'm honest, I was choosing the only place where I knew how to feel okay. Leaving gives me relief. It always has. The moment I decide to go, something inside me settles. The anxiety quiets. The feeling of unworthiness softens just enough. But it is a small relief, a temporary one. And then I am alone again, and the pattern continues. For years, I built an identity around being independent. I even had this image in my head since I was 18. Me driving alone in a red car, strong, free, untouchable. That image became my definition of worth. Not love, not connection, escape. But here's the contradiction I am only now beginning to understand. I run to be independent, and at the same time, I define my value through others. I need people to feel worthy, but I don't trust relationships enough to stay in them. So I create an impossible situation. I leave, and then I search again. I start new relationships, but I bring the same version of myself into them. The same wounds, the same beliefs. So nothing is truly new. It is just a different stage for the same story. And always, eventually, I find a reason to feel unworthy again. That belief, the one planted by my father, choosing alcohol over being present, the one reinforced when my mother left me behind, never left. It followed me into every relationship. Whenever I feel not cared for, I panic. Not visibly, not dramatically, but inside. Something collapses. And then I react. I either fight or I leave. There's never been a middle ground. No one ever taught me how to stay and solve something. How to sit with discomfort. How to say, this hurts, instead of turning it into conflict or escape. So now, at 48, divorced, with children who are almost adults, I am finally asking myself a question I avoided my entire life. Who am I if I stop running? It's not an easy question. Because when I stop, I see things clearly. I see how I generalized one broken relationship into a rule for all love. I see how I repeated my mother's pattern without questioning it. I see how I confused attention with worth and control with connection. I see how I abandoned myself long before anyone else had the chance to. But I also see something else now. I see that it was never my fault. It was not my fault that my father couldn't be present. It was not my fault that my mother left me behind that day. It was not my fault that I learned survival instead of trust. But it is my responsibility now to choose differently. That is the hardest part. Because running is easy. It is familiar. It works. At least for a moment. Staying, that is new. Staying means feeling things I've spent decades avoiding. It means not turning every discomfort into proof that I'm unworthy. It means learning that relationships change after the honeymoon phase. And that change is not abandonment. It means understanding that being less needed does not mean being less loved. And maybe, most importantly, it means learning to give myself what I've always been asking from others. I am not fully there yet. Some days, the urge to run is still strong. It rises quickly, like an old reflex. But now, at least I see it. I recognize it. Sometimes I stay, not because I feel perfectly secure, not because everything's resolved, but because I'm starting to understand that I'm not running from them. I'm running from myself. And maybe, just maybe, I don't have to anymore. For the first time in my life, I am learning that worth is not something someone else gives me. It is something I allow myself to have. And if I can truly believe that, even a little, then maybe one day, I will no longer be the woman who could never stay. Maybe I will become the woman who finally